All right. Hello and welcome to Beyond the Deal, the show where we go deeper than the numbers. And today we have something very exciting for you. We're going to try something new. See, here at Beyond the Deal and at Nimble Capital, actually, we're always trying to find ways to bring more value to our listeners, to our investors. And when we're asking ourselves, how can we do that? Well, one of the things we thought is let's take you beyond one of our own deals. So today on the show, my guest is none other than my business partner, yet again, Mike Angelo, but we will be taking you behind the scenes of one of our deals and telling you what's going well, what have been some challenges, what have we learned, why did we pick this market. So without further ado, let's get into it. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, man. Love the podcast. I love being on the podcast now. Actually, I feel like I don't get enough of this, but hopefully the viewers get a good exposure to some of our deals, and one of them in particular I know we're going to talk about. I think it's very different, and hopefully we can add some value.
Yeah. Why don't you just give us the quick intro? Where is this deal? What kind of deal is it? And then we'll kind of go deeper than that.
Sure. Well, absolutely. So obviously, we're in multifamily. That's predominantly all we do. This particular project is in Casa Grande, Arizona, so just a little south of Phoenix for everybody, about 40 minutes south. And what took us down there was actually a development project. It's a land site deal that we're doing. We're raising capital for that, and we'll be moving on that shortly. But while we were in town, we connected with Economic Development Group, the mayor, and they really kind of gave us a red carpet tour of all the things that are happening in Casa Grande, and particularly what they were looking for help with developers in an area called the downtown. The downtown has really kind of been antiquated, stuck in the 1960s, not a lot of development, not a lot of opportunity for new retail and entertainment. So we happened to see a building that he happened to know that was going to be up for sale. And he kind of gave us his vision of like, man, it'd be great to have a restaurant and really kind of entertainment centric space.
When you say he, you mean the mayor?
The mayor, actually. Yeah, very good. So the mayor is giving us his tour, and he's talking about all the things that could be. And, the parallels for those that are in the Arizona market is Gilbert, Chandler, Arizona. There's a lot of really cool eclectic spaces that you can go and have elevated dining and entertainment. Doesn't exist in this town at all. And so, Michael and I, we do multifamily. We know nothing about this, but we saw the building, we saw the opportunity. And so then we just went and did the math and then started asking some folks that have expertise in the space, retail brokers predominantly, retail developers, to go, hey, how do we put this together? And, something I love to do, obviously, is put the deal together, get the right players in place, and then move forward. So fast forward, we were able to put a plan together, really convert a 19,000 square foot space into about 7 suites, retail suites with a focus on entertainment. And so that was almost 3 years ago, right? 2.5 years ago. And what have we been doing since? I can stop talking, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that happened.
Let's rewind a little first, because there's so much to unpack here. So first, you mentioned that we were already in this market because of a ground up multifamily development deal. Now, one, I want you to talk about at Casa Grande and the growth that's going on there. Why this market and why now this market? And two, what is the difference between a development deal versus a redevelopment, which is what this deal is?
Sure. Why Casa Grande, first of all, right? 45 minutes south, predominantly has been a bedroom community. In the last big recessionary cycle that everyone got impacted by, Phoenix was a heavy hit, right? We know this. Casa Grande was hit even heavier, right? So 2008, 2010 really just dilapidated the town, and all the growth that was coming up until then stopped. No different than any other market, but Phoenix really felt it. What's different now, right? 10, 15 years later, if you look at where Phoenix is as a market, it's so much more diverse, right? It was predominantly housing. That's what drove the economy. Today we have tech, we have chips, of course, we have general employment, we have science and technology. So there's aerospace, there's a ton of different employers in the Phoenix market. And that's just branched out to the outer skirts of the Phoenix MSA, Casa Grande being one of them. And so specifically, there's 3 or 4 large employers that have moved down there related to the chips industry, related to electric car companies. And that's now fostered its own economy. So if things completely blow up, right, it can support itself. So that's one of the big things we look at when we look at other markets, right? We look at New Mexico and Texas and Oklahoma. What's growing down there? So positive population growth. I think it's 2% annually, right? The average population you really want to see is like 2% over 10 years is 2% per year in population growth. The average median income has grown like $20,000 annually. So it's like 67 or 68,000 on its way to like 70 plus. So lots of population growth, lots of income growth, lots of job growth. That's what gets us excited about the development deal that we started, which is, again, ground up, buying dirt and building something from brand new. That's what got us down to the marketplace. As we found this deal, we knew the dynamics were similar, meaning all the market info demographics matched, right? People have to have a little bit more disposable income in order to spend money on fine dining, for example, right? They're not eating at Burger King. They want to go and have a better experience. So you got to have a little bit of a disposable income. So the market fit that. The market also fit from a competition standpoint. There's nothing out there around high-end restaurants or even mid-grade restaurants. It's really chains, right? You think of a chain, it's there, right? And that's just terrible. So those two things really got us interested in the space. And to answer your second part of your question is, what is redevelopment? So now we're taking an existing building, which was basically an office building and an old warehouse, and then gutting it and converting it into retail focused on dining, entertainment, right? And we'll have a little bit of a beauty salon space as well. So a little mixed retail. It was really the kind of general description of the space.
Okay. So we've mentioned this a couple times before on this podcast, but for our listeners who are maybe unfamiliar, can you explain the nuances of why retail, why triple net versus, long-term multifamily?
Yeah. So it's a really great comparison, right? So why retail? Retail, I think a lot of folks get spooked by it because you drive by different places, shopping centers are empty. All that is true. If you can find a niche market where there's a gap, you're going to fill it, right? There's going to be a huge opportunity there. So that's why retail. It's diverse. It's separate from multifamily. So as any market grows, actually, let me zoom out a little bit. In any market where there's a ton of growth, first you bring a bunch of people in, right? That's usually the first reason they're there because it's cheaper than Phoenix. It's 40 minutes away. Housing starts. Then you got schools, roads. Then if you can get jobs and industry, now you start to see a full economy in itself. Well, then that needs shopping centers and retail, right? So that's kind of the last piece to go in. And that's really kind of where we are with Casa Grande now. You're starting to see all that. You're starting to see more industry, but you're definitely starting to see a lot more retail. It takes time and proof for these large companies to come in. The best example, actually, and it's never happened in the history of Target Corporation. So I don't know I think I told you this, right, Michael?
Yeah.
Target Corp had a location in Casa Grande and closed in 2013. So the economy came through, right? Wiped everybody out, got really hammered. Target moved out of Casa Grande, left their building. They still own it. Guess what? They're moving back in. They'll be in, I think, by middle of next year. So never in Target's history have they left the city and come back. That's in the same location because they only own it, right? That is actually probably one of the best pieces of evidence of why you want to invest, because Target doesn't just go up anywhere, right? Walmart's, I don't want to say they're less choosy, but they pick typically lower demographic areas. Target needs to be at a little bit higher disposable income base. So that was the first part. The other thing, triple net retail. What is triple net? So N, 3 N's. That represents fees that the landlord can charge the tenant. So typically in multifamily, you got rent and then you got utilities, sometimes gas, whatever, right? Other income. In retail, you have base rent, and then you have another dollar per square foot number that covers taxes and insurance. It covers common area maintenance, taxes, insurance, common area maintenance. Those are the 3 items for the entire building. So it's not just for their suite, it's for the entire building. We're spreading the costs as a landlord to cover those costs. In multifamily, we are 100% responsible for maintenance, taxes, and insurance. And so it's a beautiful thing from that standpoint. Anything that happens within the unit, the tenant is responsible for, right? So that's another caveat that, is there. What are we responsible for? The shell of the building. So if a roof leaks, ACs go down, then that falls on us, but everything is covered by the tenant. And then anything outside of that is also covered proportionally to their suite, right? So if we have 10,000 square feet and they're 2,500 of that, that's 25% pro rata, then they would pay 25% of those 3 costs I just described.
Now, can you also talk a little bit about, with a commercial retail property like this, how does one even go about determining what the tenant pays for rent?
Yeah, so we did a ton of market studies. And of course, this is where you have to have expertise, right? So we didn't have this expertise. We had to go find it. And so we interviewed lots of brokers, property managers of commercial properties, and really got a sense that, Gen 1 space, which is basically brand new buildings, they rank here. Our space was built in the 60s, and it would rent likely at like a $15 square foot rate, where new stuff is renting in the 40s. Well, we have to renovate this space and really make it new. So where's the sweet spot to get and attract tenants that can, one, afford the rent, and we can also reposition ourselves, because we're not going to just put people into an old building, right? So this is where there's a ton of underwriting and math to go, well, what can the market support? What can a tenant support? And I think it's okay to be transparent, right? We're in the mid 30s here as far as gross lease per square foot per year. So this is a little different than multifamily for those of you folks. You take basically a dollar amount, $30 per square foot. That's the rate on an annualized basis. And you multiply that times the square footage. So easy math, use 1,000 square feet, $30, $30,000 per year, right? Is your lease cost. And then you add in the triple net. In this case, it's about $6. So then that's another $6,000 that you'd add on, right? So $36,000. That's what that tenant pays per year for that. And that's right in the market for kind of new, revitalized assets. Now, the hard part is how much is it going to cost us to fix that property so that those numbers make sense, right? And so you do the kind of a 3-year ROI, like 3-year return on investment. So, okay, we're going to earn 36,000, then really we shouldn't be spending more than 3x that, right? Call it $150,000 in that suite. And so you multiply that out and you figure out if it makes sense to do so. And so we're in a pretty good place with our underwriting, and this was all new underwriting for us. We took our current underwriting template, kind of re-engineered it, got some experts to help us with that. And I think we can go down a whole podcast and talk about like that piece of it. How does this make sense? Does it make money? But at the end of the day, we're going to see a property where we'll be all in. We'll have a very nice profit coming out of it after all our hard costs go in, really out the gate. So at the end of this year, we'll be done with construction. We have quite a few leases in place and another one in the works. And so to be fully stabilized, we'll be, several $1 million above where we paid for it and put into the deal. So it's a really different way to get into real estate. And, again, we didn't know a lot, so we brought people in to help us.
Really quick, you mentioned getting into this in the first place. Now, I think one of the things that was so attractive about this in the first place is owner financing. And so for, any of our listeners who maybe don't know what that means or don't understand is like, you want to go buy a property, normally you have to go to a bank. Well, dealing with banks is an absolute nightmare. But if the seller owns the property, he doesn't have a loan on it, he owns it outright, he can be the bank. And he can set whatever terms he wants. And you can close fast, you can make things happen, and you don't have to get banks involved. And so I think all in all, we were able to get this property with 100% owner financing. And it's a massive property that we were able to get at a really good price.
Yeah.
So,
very good basis. And all we had to do was ask, right? Because the brokers don't tell you that you could seller finance, right? And so we just asked, hey, can we do this? This is an odd deal, right? They were asking quite a bit more than what we paid for it. But we made them a good deal. So we got a 3-year term and a fixed rate. That's 5%. And we're able to go through that. Now we do need a bank, right? We're in the middle of our construction loan now, but the traditional, getting in first and really doing all the due diligence, having that seller finance was really a great way to go. We had a really long due diligence period too. So we could really understand and get under the hood of the property to understand what our costs were going to be.
All right. Hey, really quick. I hope you're enjoying this episode. I just wanted to stop for a second and thank our sponsor, which is me. Nimble Capital Group is my boutique investment firm where we help passive investors access deals built for cash flow, equity growth, and powerful tax benefits. And if you think you've ever wanted to learn how to raise capital and become a GP yourself, I coach a select group of students each month, most of whom will raise over $500,000 within their first 60 days. So check the show notes in the description below to book a call. I'll see you there. So let's talk a little bit about where we are today. Let's talk about what do we have going as far as current tenants? Let's talk about what are some of the challenges that we are encountering at the moment.
Sure. So the good stuff is, we have a really great GC, a general contractor partner in all of their trades. That is a huge part of whether this works or doesn't work. From, understanding our needs, understanding our vision, finding ways to save money and make sure they have to make a profit too, right? But they understand the net profit. So today we have 7, spaces where 3 of them are leased, and we're in the works to get 2 more of those. So we have a cocktail bar, we have a restaurant that's in the works, we have a beauty salon, and then we're working on an event planning company. So there's a lot of work that's done. And it's funny now, like for the last 6 months, it doesn't look like a lot of stuff because it's a big empty building. Then the walls start going in, then the drywall starts going in, and now we got finishes going in with doors. Now you start to really see the spaces, and it completely changes what we have. And it's funny to look at a set of plans and go, okay, I see it, but now you're actually seeing it happen in real life. And so we took something from nothing to that. And that's probably the most exciting thing I think that you can do, right? You're creating great economic benefit for us, our investors, but for the community mostly, right? Like they're going to see, the city's going to see tax dollars. The patrons and the citizens of Casa Grande are going to see fantastic, places to hang out and something that doesn't exist there. So it's pretty cool.
Some of the hype around this project. I mean, we've had city council people, come and take photos in front of it and put it on LinkedIn and had no idea. They didn't tell us they were going to do that. And, we would just find out via LinkedIn. And I swear every single time I'm down there, somebody who's just happening to walk by says something. I can't wait for this to be open. What do you have going in there? And the hype around it, because the thirst for the town, right? The people who live there, the community, to just have somewhere to go, a place to go hang out, to have some nice cocktails, to have, an upper level of food greater than the chain restaurant hell that they're used to. They are absolutely ecstatic about it. And so, really getting to be a part of that and see how we can actually change the community is really meaningful. And the building will look cool too.
It gives me goosebumps, man. Like I get so excited when you hear the passion from those folks. Now, they don't know about all the pain and stress that we've gone through to get there, right? There's a whole bunch of that. And so you try to do it with a smile on your face. And, one of your questions were, what was the challenges? So I just talked about kind of where we are and all the good stuff. But how did we get here? We had a million roadblocks. We were not perfect. We made some mistakes for sure. But I think the biggest challenge today is the financing. And the finance world itself is very challenging. And when you take on a retail space like this, retail, there's only certain lenders that really like retail. Multifamily, we know it. We know which lenders love that. It cash flows. This building was vacant when we bought it. So it made this much money, right? $0. And we didn't have any leases. We didn't have any. So initially going out to the banks, we did obviously shop it. And our job was to go raise some equity and get this thing moving so that we could start to present to tenants a viable space for them to lease and then take those leases to the bank, right? And so it's a little bit of a chicken or the egg kind of deal. Right? If you have all the equity in the world to go do it, you don't need a lender, right? Most folks are not in that position. And it's actually not the best use of capital, right? Typically loans are much lower cost than equity, and it's a little different kind of risk. So we went out and we're in the middle of our bank loan now, but we've gone through multiple lenders actually over the last year that have come in and out and changed their mind, changed terms, all kinds of different things for a variety of different reasons. The market has really created a lot of fear. And, I mentioned Casa Grande is 45 minutes outside of Phoenix. Certain lenders are like super bullish on Phoenix, but they don't know Casa Grande. Other lenders are bullish on multifamily and not necessarily retail. The biggest challenge, and this is a learning for us, is it's really hard to get a permanent or construction loan mid-construction, right? So we are like 80% done now, but we still need, a couple $1 million to finish this thing. So how did we get here? We raised equity, we put equity to work. But again, chicken or egg, if we didn't do that and spend that money, we wouldn't have gotten those leases, which wouldn't have helped us get the loan. So it's like, what do you do first, right? And so we rolled the dice and we said, look, we believe in this. We know this is going to work. We're going to get a loan. We're going to keep chopping along. And that's what we've done, right? Next one lender says no, we go to the next one. And so we found a great lender. We're in the middle of that now, and we'll get this thing closed here, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then by the end of this year, our goal is to be done.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good note to end on. I do want to give our audience just a little bit more insight. One of the coolest things I think about the property is the fact that we've called it the terminal. And the reason that we've done that is because Casa Grande actually used to be the terminal station of what railroad was it?
The Union Pacific Railroad used to end at Casa Grande. It used to be called Terminus. That's a terrible name. So they, historic ruins from the Native Americans. They saw Casa Grande, which is a big house in Spanish, right? Is a Native American, ironically, but a Native American structure that was in place in Casa Grande. And so that's what they named it, Casa Grande, if you want to say it properly, but Casa Grande works.
Yeah,
we thought
from Arizona, it's Casa Grande.
It's Casa Grande, yeah, that's the other way to say it. But we thought we could pay homage to the city, this building, which has been there since the 50s. It used to be an old hardware store, and really use the train, theme in and around the property. So we called it the terminal. You guys will see the logo. Hopefully when we put this out, you'll see what the logo looks like. There's just a set of railroad tracks. And then the other part of the community, Michael, is, we have a relationship with the Historical Society there. They're giving us some components of the old rail depot, and we're going to put that into our property. So some of the areas where that'll be open for public, that'll have some remnants of the depot that burned down. So we'll have some doors, some hardware, and again, just pay homage to some really cool history.
Yeah. And at one point we were even in talks to actually get a caboose, but we can't figure out how to get it to the site.
That might be plan D. Yeah. We'll get to that. But yeah, that would be really cool to have a train car or caboose out in the yard. Yeah. Like our goal is, from an investor standpoint, get this thing leased, get some cash flow, get it stabilized, and, really prove out the model. And I think there was a lot of naysayers. I think that's fair, right? even within our own circles, they're like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, well, this is the plan, and we're going to get there, and we're at the finish line.
Yeah, people are fearful of things they don't really know or understand. They've, heard all the rumors of, vacant strip malls and why retail and office and all this kind of stuff. And we're not going to buy a high-rise building right now, not in this work from home environment. But, everywhere I look, retail centers or strip malls are full all across the state. And this town, the fundamentals of why we're doing this deal make absolute sense. And I think that when you stick to the fundamentals, you are guaranteed to win in this industry. So
yeah, and you still need to stick to the principles, right? The math still has to math, right? So we continuously plug in the underwriting, double check the numbers. As soon as I get a change order, which that's another conversation for another day when we dig in deeper with general contractors. But that change order can go, oh crap, I didn't budget that in. So how does that affect the numbers down the road? And so you got to keep doing that and continuously update. So
cool.
Well, great.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, Mike. I think what we're going to do from now on for the audience is we will have you on a lot more, and we'll just roll back the hood and we'll talk a lot more about what it actually is like to be a multifamily operator, to be a retail commercial redeveloper, to be a ground up multifamily developer. And we'll just take back a lot of the mystery of, what does it mean to actually be an operator in this industry? So without further ado, thank you for being here, Mike, and we will see you all next time.
Love it. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Deal. I hope you got some valuable insights that you can apply to your own investing journey. Now, if you've enjoyed this conversation, do me a favor, hit that follow button, leave a review, and share this episode with somebody who you think could benefit from it. It really helps the show grow and bring on even more incredible guests. If you want to go deeper, make sure to follow me on your socials. You can find the links in the show notes in the description below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Until then, keep going beyond the deal.